In this movie, one of the main characters is said to have fucked one of her stuffed toys, specifically a panda with one of his eyes hanging down because it's got a loose thread. Who does that? Who did that? I mean, it's not like people do that in general. Miss Moneypenny gets onto Olivia Wilde or her scriptwriters and find out how they discovered one of my secrets. I don't know how they did it, but they discovered it. What secret? Well, it was. Oh shit! We're still recording. Hang on a second. You didn't see anything. You didn't hear anything. Nothing is going on. Nothing at all. Nothing's happening. Quick, cue titles before anything else happens. Gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Booksmart, the 2019 coming-of-age comedy directed by Olivia Wilde. This is the 7th film I am watching for my multiplex contemporary popular cinema module, and at time of this review being recorded, it is currently the latest one I've seen, although I will be watching the other two within the coming weeks. The next one will probably be within a few days. At the time of this video coming out, it might even have been seen. If not, it will be soon. So, Booksmart. Okay, so this is a coming-of-age buddy teen movie. Buddy, as it's got two main female characters who are like buddies, and we've had a couple of films throughout this module where we've had buddy films. Pretty much almost every film so far. I think Basic Instinct only had a little bit of it in there, and then the rest, it's been a subgenre or loosely in there in some way. But yeah, and like Thelma and Louise, this is it's another two female-led film. It's quite a feminist film. In fact, there's quite a lot of references to strong historical female characters who are the inspiration to our main characters. So we got another feminist film here. Excellent. But I'm not so keen on this film as I was with Thelma and Louise, but I'll get more into why later on. But first, the plot. So the plot of Booksmart is that these two girls called Molly and Amy are about to graduate from their final year at high school and are looking to go to notable universities that smart people usually go to, with Amy going to go to Africa for the summer for a bit. However, Molly then discovers that a lot, if not almost all of her classmates that didn't study as hard as them are also going to big, well-known, famous universities that usually a lot of smart or talented people would go to. And they've either messed around or had a bit of fun or kind of did a little bit of silliness or something else alongside schoolwork or instead of schoolwork, and yet they're still going to their chosen universities. So Molly decides that she and Amy should go to one last big party on the night before graduation so that they can prove that they're not just academics, they can also have a bit of fun and have some party before graduation. So the two try and find this big party that Molly's, because she's the president or her class president, her vice president, Nick, is holding a big party, and Molly wants to go to that. She's also got a crush on Nick that she secretly has. Amy is a bit reluctant to go to these parties, and she feels like she's being dragged around by Molly. And it does kind of turn into a bit of a screwball comedy as the two try to find Nick's party, but they end up going to two other parties for a small amount of time, whilst also trying to actually get to said parties. Firstly, they get picked up by one of their friends who takes them to his own party on a boat. And then they try and get to another party that a friend of theirs sends the address, and they get picked up by their headmaster, who does some taxi driving and other stuff such as book writing on the side, because teacher wages aren't very high. So he does other stuff on the side, legal stuff, good stuff like taxi driving and writing books. So yeah, he does that, and then he gets to this other party that one of the friends is hosting, but it's a murder mystery drama party. And then the girls then try to get to Nick's party after firstly trying to find the address from some pizza stuff and meeting this pizza delivery guy. This guy might be important later to the plot, but you'd be forgiven if you were like, wait, who's that guy again? Is he the pizza delivery guy? When the time comes around, and I'll get to that. And then they get picked up by their teacher and dropped off at the party, and the teacher also sneaks in, and they finally get to the right party. And we spend most of the second half of the movie at this party, or at least the next good portion of the movie, when Molly and Amy try to mingle with the guests, and Molly tries to go to Nick. As it's revealed after they went to the second party, she has a crush on him, and Amy then says, "Oh, they have to go to that party now." That's the only time Amy actually says, "Yes, let's go to this party. Come on, you." When Molly's prepared to give up, all the other times it's Molly dragging Amy around. Amy's also got a crush on this girl called Ryan. Amy's already come out as gay before the events of this movie, and she's got this crush on a girl called Ryan. But then she discovers that Ryan's straight, and it looks like she's having a relationship with Nick, who's already a bit of a ladies' man. Side note: I have no relation to the character who has the same name as me. And then Amy and Molly have a big falling out in the middle of the third act, and it does feel like a third act breakup that we usually get as a cliche in some films. And half of the argument is silent and with music over the top with it. But Amy then gets with this girl who wasn't really nice to her or Molly earlier in the film, but around this point we start to learn the message of people not being who they seem on the outside. On the inside, they could be quite different, and the guy who had the boat party earlier has a nice conversation scene with Molly shortly afterwards about it. That's essentially the plot of Booksmart, although I'll get to the final act a bit more specifically in detail later on. But I do like the whole moral of the the outside doesn't always show what the inside is. So some of the other characters, they're not always like how they're shown in school. Sometimes they've got their own thing going on. They don't always appear who they normally are, and I think that's a good message. I think it's quite interesting to see that develop. I also like the character growth of the two main characters, and that they work off really well with each other. They bounce off pretty great. I think the actors bounce off each other really well to prove that these two characters are best of friends. But there is a bit of tension underlying there, especially later on in the movie. And the drama stuff works really well with both the character development and the moral of the message. We've also got a couple of fun supporting characters, like the headmaster. He was a great character. We've got this girl called Gigi, who's crazy, basically, played by Billy Loud. I think that's how you say her name, the daughter of Carrie Fisher. She's a great character, and also like the guy who had the boat party. He's a pretty fun guy. Also got these the actors, the drama people. Also, they do sound like they've been given voices to sound that they're gay or something, or at least the voices that are usually associated with gay people. Not stereotyping or anything, although the movie might be. But they're good characters, apart from the possible stereotyping. Although it is quite strange to see one of them dressed in drag during the murder mystery party thing. But it is quite funny in places. And also got this Mexican guy who has a thing for his teacher. I'm not sure if the actor's Mexican, but the character is, and he's going to go and work for Google, so the representation there is on a balance. If the actor is Mexican, then it's a positive balance in representation, but if not, then it's a kind of a double-edged sword. And that is quite funny how he does have a crush on the teacher. And then there's another two girls in there who weren't that initially that nice to our main characters, but one of them ends up getting with Amy, and the other one helps out Molly at one point as well. So there's a few good characters in here. But now we come to what I'm not so keen on. Now, although I did find some bits fun and there was some genuinely funny moments and even a few bits I laughed out loud at, I can't remember what my biggest laugh out loud moment was, but there is one bit I do remember really well, and that's when Molly and Amy are in the headmaster's car and they've plugged in tablets and they're watching porn for research purposes, and the headmaster's got music playing, and he then notices they've got their thing on, and he's like, "Oh, are you playing your own music? Here, let me put it through the speakers so we can all hear." And he plays the audio of the porn that they're watching, and then he thinks it's another type of music. Oh, that was that was such a great moment. But besides that, the comedy for me is a bit off. It doesn't quite gel with me. It might be my taste in comedy, but apart from a few bits I did find funny and entertaining and enjoyable, and outright laugh out loud at some moments, such as that scene I just described. But besides that, there is a bit of off comedy, and at times I struggled to get into it. I felt very uncomfortable. Even earlier on, I was when they were at school on the day before graduation. I felt prepared to actually turn the movie off pretty early on, because the comedy had gotten off on the wrong foot with me. And whilst, as I mentioned, there was some bits I did like and enjoy and found funny, we kept this type of comedy throughout the movie. Perhaps it's just because it's very modern comedy, and teenage oriented comedy. That's why it feels a little bit off. Well, actually, a lot off. For about 70% of the movie, apart from bits I did enjoy. But yeah, I don't know. It didn't quite. I didn't quite get into most of it. Besides the bits I did like, as I've mentioned. Other bits I found cringe. I also found Amy's parents incredibly cringy. I don't know whether they were supposed to be obnoxious and a bit over the top, but they just came off as that. Basically, Lisa Kudrow and Will Forte play them, and although they do put in a good performance, the writing or directing just make their characters come all obnoxious. More so Will Forte's character, because he gets an extra more obnoxious moment to Lisa Kudrow's character. But it just feels very uncomfortable with them. There's a bit at the end that they're talking about something that's quite uncomfortable. That's bad enough, and then it's broken by a dead silence that feels even more uncomfortable. But even the scenes earlier on when we first meet them, it's still got some cringy stuff going for it. So I don't know if these characters were intended to be cringy, or unorthodox, or just odd, but that's definitely how it kind of came across for me, and that certainly didn't help my initial feelings of the movie that earlier on. Thankfully, good stuff came along. Thankfully, the stuff I did enjoy did come later on, as well as also the great character and drama stuff that came along. In terms of the filming execution style, we had some great shots in there, so it's really greatly shot. Editing wise, it's pretty greatly edited, although there is some I would say odd choices where it would cut from one scene, what seems to be one scene, then to another scene, or what's taking place somewhere in one scene, but the scene continues, but you've moved to another place and somewhere, and a couple of other characters are doing stuff, all in the space of a scene. And whilst the scenes do thankfully last a decent amount of time, like a minute or so, as opposed to several cutting back and forths a lot, like modern editing seems to do, and some in a couple of films, more so in some action films trying to rip off the Bourne films. Thankfully, the editing is greatly done here, but they do have the odd choices of just kind of cutting from one character to another, just a couple of characters doing something somewhere, to another couple of characters doing something else elsewhere, and also with some of the music that they've added in here. I mean, I'm not terribly worried about the original score in itself, but it'll do, I guess. But I suppose the modern pop music, that again doesn't really help with the comedy that much. But there's also some bits where they have some of that playing, and then they just it stops and we just carry on or something. I don't know, but yeah. We also seen some bits that seem like there's some time being cut, like when the girls are driving into the car park early on in the movie for their last day of school. they're driving into the car park, and then we cut to them parking in the car spot. And I think a couple of seconds had been cut from that. It might have cut to another shot, but I'm not entirely certain about that. It might have worked better if it was from a different angle, but I think it was from the same angle that's cut a few seconds later, or certainly an angle that was like the first one. There's also this really bizarre scene in when the girls have gone to the second party, where earlier on in the movie, Gigi has given them strawberries at the first party, but they've been dipped in drugs. So at the second party, they now have this episode where they that's how it's described, where they imagine themselves turned into dolls, or they somehow do turn into dolls somehow. And we do have some great stop motion animation here, definitely very Robot Chicken-esque to me, and it's handled really well there, but it's weird. It's a very weird scene. I won't put this as a criticism, or even a personal one, but it is a weird sequence. It's quite strange. It doesn't last long. It's about 2 minutes or so, but it's weird. It's very weird. I'm not entirely sure why they imagined themselves as dolls, or even turned into dolls from this drug, but yeah, it's an odd sequence, but yeah, I'll take it. I'm going to question it. And then the last kind of bit of the movie, climax going on, the ending. The police turn up at the house because never explained. Actually, the police are never explained to have any reason to be at the house. Maybe the music is too loud. Maybe they've got a tip off about underage teenagers drinking or having drugs, etc. In America, the drinking age is 21, which, considering the age of consent for driving is mid-teenage, and they probably learned this in schools. 21 seems a bit old for the drinking age, considering they can drive younger. Here in the UK, driving is 17 and drinking is 18, and that feels more sensible. Because 18 is you're officially an adult, but you can start driving just before that. Well, start learning to drive before that, and I think it's 16 for a motorbike as well, or a motor scooter. So, yeah, we got a bit more sensible laws in the UK, where it's around the 15 to 18 margin for specific things. It's not telling you what to do, America, but yeah, I think our laws are a bit more sensible, or our age of consent laws are anyway. Although learning to drive in school would be a good idea, even if it's just practicing. But yeah, the police turn up at this house because I don't know, they never actually explain. I suppose it's just so that they can have the police turn up at a party in this movie about teenagers going to a party, and so one of the main characters can be arrested for insert reason why here. Seriously, I'm asking why, because what happens is Amy takes the fall for anybody who hasn't gotten out of the house by the time the police arrive. She manages to distract them whilst everybody else gets out, and she's the only one who goes to the police station and is getting a fine and going to see the judge for reasons they don't actually explain. She never says what she's being charged with. The police don't say what she's being charged with. The other people don't say what she's being charged with. We don't even know why the police were there in the first place. So I'm just saying it's cliche that the police were going to turn up at this house and have an arrest, and it was going to be a main character or the main characters. And you know what the worst thing is? I honestly hoped we wouldn't see that. I was half expecting something like that to happen and hoping we would not. But we did, because it's cliche and pointless. And it actually does turn out to be pointless as well in the movie. Because they just brush it off afterwards. Molly says, "Oh, we've known this character who the police have wanted. It's probably that pizza delivery guy," but you don't really connect with it straight away. So yeah, they know information about the guy, and then Amy's just released, and they get to go to the graduation. You could have honestly done away with the police stuff, and you could have had Molly and Amy resolve their third act breakup in a different way, because this seems so forced and unnecessary, and didn't work. And maybe the stuff that the pizza delivery guy was saying to them in the car turns out to be ironic if he is that guy the police are wanting, but yeah, it's not that funny. When the whole setup to that scene, not with the police delivery guy, with the police officers, when the police officer stuff is completely pointless, it doesn't work. And that's if the pizza delivery guy is the guy who's wanted. If it's somebody else, well, I don't know who it was then, because not anybody, apart from anybody who's associated with the school or the main characters in person, we don't actually know anybody else. From this movie, we were never introduced to anybody else who the girls didn't know beforehand or had a connection with someone they know. So, yeah, only really the pizza delivery guy was the only character they actually met who they didn't know or didn't know anybody they knew, or at least not that we knew in the film anyway, or at least not that was said anyway. The whole police stuff could just have been cut altogether. They eventually make it to graduation. Amy gets back with her girlfriend because she threw up on her whilst having sex with her. So they kind of had a little bit of a distance between each other, but they get back together. That's the second uncomfortable scene with Amy's parents and Molly. And then we also have Amy and Molly's goodbye, because also Amy also reveals that she's going to Africa for a year. She's taking a gap year. So she's going off for a year now. And we get a pretty great ending where the two say goodbye and Amy heads off to the airport. I guess all the stuff with the police, it really was brushed off then, because that doesn't affect this scene. Told you it was fucking pointless. But then suddenly Amy then rushes back to the car and then gets in and they decide to go on a town or something. And the movie ends there. Wait, what was that ending? So we had the potential of a really great emotional ending right in front of us with Molly and Amy saying goodbye as Amy was going to go on the plane. Maybe we could have one more bit where Amy ran back to the car to give Molly one last big hug and then they parted on good terms. But from what the last lines were, I think Amy said, should we just go and hang out on the town? And Molly's like, fuck yes, or something along those lines. And then the movie just ends there. I think that's what happened. Anyway, it was so quick and outdone really quickly. It went past so quick that I didn't quite catch it. And yeah, by the looks of it, it looks like Amy's not catching the plane, or at least not today. So this makes a pretty weak ending, in honesty. We had the potential for a great ending right in front of us, but ultimately they chickened out, and yeah, we just had a rushed ending at the very end. So yeah, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. So Booksmart, the positives: some great character stuff and some great character drama, some great cinematography, editing, and a couple of fun characters, and even a few good comedy moments and laugh out loud moments. However, the comedy throughout the movie it doesn't entirely gel, and I've struggled to get into it at some points, and even cringed at a few points. And there was some story direction points that were questionable, and not all of it made sense, and even some bits that were completely unnecessary and tropey and cliche for the sake of it. And so it's kind of a bit of a mixed bag for me, and it is that tone, and it's that type of comedy that I can get into it that does let it down quite a bit for me. However, it maybe because I'm not the target audience. I think its target audience is for teenage girls and young adult women. And whilst I'm within the age range, I'm not within the sex range, so to speak. So maybe that's not why I'm not getting into it as much. And also, it's very modern in type of comedy, or certainly for teenage, young adult type of comedy. So it's definitely catering more towards that. So maybe I'm not quite getting into that, even though I am a young adult. But it does feel quite cringy. But there is still some great stuff throughout the movie, and so I was able to stick with it and get some great stuff out of it. But overall, I couldn't get into it as much as I wanted to, which was a massive shame. So I will be giving Booksmart a 7 out of 10. It 7 because there was some really good stuff that I did like. There was some funny moments I liked. There was some actual laugh out loud moments. There were some characters I liked. There were some scenes that were really great, and it was a greatly made film on a visual point of view. But not all of the comedy clicked for me, and there was some obnoxious and cringy moments here and there. And there was also some plot points that I didn't find necessary or even worth having in the film. Um, so yeah, it doesn't completely click with me, but I will respect it for what it successfully achieved. And I will still say it's good. It's probably no, it's definitely the weakest of the 7 films I've watched for this university course module, but it's nowhere near the worst one I've watched for any university module or in general. It's not a comedy I would rush back to, but it might be one I would give a second chance to, but not straight away. Maybe give it some time to distance ourselves, and then maybe come back later on. But yeah, as for right now, I respect the drama and character work and some good comedy moments, but I'm not so keen on the main comedy tone it has and some questionable story developments and cliches. What's a bit of a shame is that this is the last fun film I'm watching for this university module, because the next 2 films are going to be a bit more dramatic. The next one is Moonlight, which is a drama film about a gay black man coming out, and he's got an abusive father and a mother who's been abused a lot by the father. So it's going to be quite a dramatic film there. And then we've got Hustlers after that, which is based on a true story. It's a bit more serious. There might be some fun, maybe even comedic moments in that film, and some interactions with fun and enjoyable interactions between the main characters. And that one is a bit of a buddy film, even though it's more of a group. But I'm not expecting it to have as much fun, enjoyment, or comedy as, say, this film, Thelma and Louise, Point Break, Lethal Weapon, 9 to 5, Jaws, or even Basic Instinct. Or maybe it might be on the Basic Instinct level of enjoyment. But Moonlight is definitely going to be more dramatic. So, yeah, I think Booksmart is the last really fun film before we get into the more dramatic films. There might be some fun, enjoyable stuff in Hustlers, but I'm not expecting an awful lot. Moonlight will almost certainly be a very dramatic film. Doesn't mean it'll be bad or not enjoyable. It just means it's gonna be a bit more down or bleak compared to this film. So yeah, but we'll see how it goes when we get to that film, and same for Hustlers. So thank you for watching this review of Booksmart. Next film in the Multiplex Contemporary Popular Cinema Module films is Moonlight, and so I'll see you for that or whatever comes next. Until then, goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. Right. I hate burping. Unless I'm drinking Coca-Cola or Pepsi, or some fizzy drink, then it works. Sorry, not works, it feels better. With the exception of after... and the 2 go on kind of a bit of a screwball comedy as they try to find... Because teacher Payne... because teachers don't get as... Because teacher wages are low. Because teachers don't get paid much. That's a fact. That's a fact across the world, certainly in the United States, and also I think the United Kingdom at least. Teachers don't get paid enough, so this guy might actually be important. This guy might be important later to the plot, but I still hate burping. I also like the character interaction. But they're good characters besides the potential So there's a few good characters in here, but not just with the scene at the end where they with some, but thankfully the editing is is decently done here. If it might work even better if it definitely was another shot, but I think it was from a similar angle, or certainly not too, or certainly an angle that wasn't too. Um, um, so yeah, this one didn't really. Which, considering the laws for we don't actually, they don't, we know what. They eventually make it to graduate. There's the uncomfortable bit with her parents, with the second time. And even cringed at quite a bit, including. But overall, didn't completely get gel into. But there was, but the comedy. But I will respect it for what it achieved. But I will respect it. So that's it from my. What's more? What's even? And I'll see you guys next time. In the university course film